Welcome to today's episode of the Joshua Lee Bryant podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Lee Bryant. And before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never ever miss a future podcast episode. So the irony of today, what led me here, is hilarious, because yesterday I had a well thought out, super articulated podcast episode. I even filmed said podcast episode on the implications of ChatGPT-4. And I was feeling so great about it. I even had lunch and everything, a celebratory drink, before I was getting ready to edit it down in Premiere Pro and post-production and upload it to the World Wide Web. But when I got in Premiere Pro yesterday, I had realized it just did not work how I had assumed it was going to work, like it always works. And I was running a simple USB mic into OBS, and just because naturally when I do tutorial videos on YouTube anyway, OBS is the bread and butter. And typically when I do those types of videos, I just use a Yeti Nano, put some effects on it. We're good to go. For whatever reason, my computer that I count on for business every single day decided to throw a massive temper tantrum. And it wasn't the first temper tantrum that it's thrown, not even this week. The day before, I was mixing down and editing and post-production a video. That was a tutorial video on how to use ChatGPT and certain functions and applications. And I noticed as I edited said video, it was taking a long amount of time for me to click a button and the computer to do what I wanted it to do. And it's not like this computer is not capable of video production. I bought it for 4K video production when I was simply doing video production for clients, and it had no problems with 4K. You know, in some instances and in some sequences, I was running 5 to 10 different clips at the same time, multiple audio tracks, and never had an issue. But all of a sudden this week, it decides to give me that trouble. But anyway, that led into yesterday. And then yesterday, OBS just recording 3 different screens and simply 320 kilobyte a second audio was too much for it. So it was clipping out my audio in random moments. And, you know, typically we can make do with that and chop it where it needs to be and still make sense of the video nonetheless. And every 5 seconds, every 3 to 5 seconds yesterday, it was clipping out my audio. And I was so frustrated. Not only was the whole podcast episode not feasible anymore, it meant I was going to have to go buy more gear today. And while I'm happy that I did that, nonetheless, nothing's going to stop this train. But I wound up with the Rode NT1A. It's one of my favorite condenser mics. I highly contemplated getting the Shure SM7B, I believe it was, or whatever. It's the most sought after podcast mic, and was like, well, I'm going to have to run that into a cloud lifter or a FET head or something like that. And I wasn't opposed to it. But I recalled when I was doing music production and recording vocals all the time, I would have killed at that time to have the NT1A because it really fits my vocal well, you know, singing whatever, but it caters to my voice and it brings out some of the beautiful characteristics in my natural speaking voice. So I was like, I would be an idiot to drop 700 on, you know, the Shure when the NT1A needs phantom power anyway. So just get the NT1A, no cloud lifter, any of that needed. And I'm just running it into the H6 because it's capable of putting out what this mic needs. And frankly, I'm glad I went this route. And I was saying all this to say, getting to this podcast episode and why there's not a clear directive here is to simply say sometimes things can be really frustrating, but you got to persevere through them. And if you come out the other side, things will turn out better, I guess. And if you reference some of my older videos on YouTube, you'll see I'm using this mic anyway. So because of the fact I bought it again, it feels kind of dumb, but I love this mic, and I feel like this mic would perform better for my podcast application and my video applications with the H6 than if I was to have went the Shure route. And a lot of podcasters or a lot of people that are making podcasts, they go straight for dynamic mics, and I understand it rejects anything that's not directly in front of the mic. And in my situation, you can hear other things in my house when I'm using a condenser mic like this. But if you want to capture the full characteristics of your voice in rich detail to where you're going to have enough meat on the bone to go in and edit in post-production, sometimes you might not want to discount a good cardioid condenser mic. But I understand the Shure is a famous mic for a very good reason. So, whatever mic you use is good. I do want to apologize that there isn't a clear directive in this podcast episode. The goal of this was for me to test this whole setup to make sure my settings were dialed in, and I think we've done that. But I think there's a good lesson here, and I'm not so sure what to say the metaphor and the lesson really truly is, other than the fact that don't let things get in your way, because sometimes when you're on the brink of greatness or you're on the cusp of it, a lot of things start to get in your way to try to take your attention away from what you're trying to do. With me as a marketing consultant, there's a plethora of things that just so happen to try to get in my way to stop me from doing what I'm trying to do. And it's hilarious. But the main thing in life is to keep trying to persevere through any obstacles you have, because obstacles are short term. I talk about it all the time in business. Don't worry about what if you fail. The goal is to fail so you know not how to fail again in the future. But the cool thing that's happened is my book, The Marketing Mastermind's released now. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Apple Books, everything. I'll drop a cool link in the description of this podcast episode because I'm giving away free access to the first full chapter for free. Just click that link, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll see access the first chapter here. It's really cool. And this book will get anyone that's either an entrepreneur or small business owner in the right direction, because marketing's key. A lot of business owners think if I simply open a brick and mortar location, if I pay all this money for a big sign, then people are just going to come in. And oftentimes, based on your location, you will get clients, you will get customers. If you're in a service-based business, it's a little harder, but you still will get those clients, those leads, and those customers. But if you have a dialed in, concise marketing plan, you can predict your income based on what you are spending as long as you know what you're doing. And that's why I made this book, is to try to teach, the general person that doesn't have any special knowledge in marketing how to start a good marketing campaign. And there's solid information, and there's no knowledge like free knowledge, and the first full chapter is for free. So make sure you check that out. So I think I'm finally actually understanding the message that was trying to get across to me today, and that I need to get across to you is, as long as you keep pushing through adversity, a lot of good things can happen. And just like this whole thing, I didn't like my OBS setup in the first place because you could tell that audio compression rate was so ridiculous. And it killed me as a previous life audio engineer. Like, my ears were bleeding to hear the compression rate on the 160 kilobytes a second. I was able to amp it up to 320, but you could still hear the difference. And, now on the other side of this, we're 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, and the audio sounds great. As expected, of course. But that lesson's applied to anything. How many times in life maybe are you getting frustrated at little things, and because you're so caught up in the heat of that moment, it's hard for you to even see the bigger picture. Things that even happen to us that take days of our lives to get over sometimes can distract us from the bigger picture. Big plays in life, big plays in marketing, big plays in business take months of grinding every day to make sure you achieve that ideal outcome. But if you get caught up in that short term sometimes, or if you get caught up in that right here and the right now in the moment problem, it's so hard to overlook that bigger picture, lose sight of what you're chasing after in the first place. And then all of your efforts that you've strived hard up until that moment of adversity, that moment of obstacles, was all for nothing when you're just like, man, it's just too much. So I feel like this message might be just a general message with perseverance. Train yourself. We're used to instant gratification, flipping up our social media feeds and seeing that instant gratification. We posted something a second ago, 20 people liked it, and we have 10 comments right now. And we're like, oh, that feels good. That's that instant gratification. But true metamorphosis and income producing abilities come from that delayed gratification. Things that represent delayed gratifications, like going to the gym. You can go to the gym tonight, spend 4 hours in there, go hard, burn a lot of calories, but you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to look the same. But if you do what you do tonight in the gym over and over the next few months, you'll look completely transformed. The same thing happens in anything in life. It just so happens, though, that anything that can change our lives in such a profound way in regards to income or business requires a lot of attention to detail and things that are going to gratify us in a delayed way. There's not a lot of instant gratification in business. There is in marketing sometimes. If you dial in a really great marketing campaign, you can get some nice instant gratification on your results. But even to get to that point to run that solid campaign is actually a result of delayed gratification of learning how to make that campaign dialed in the first place. So, regardless how you look at it, do not be afraid of delayed gratification. Try to limit yourself from things that give you instant gratification, and do not let OBS ruin your day, because you can come back tomorrow with a way around using OBS and you'll be solid. Yeah, I know we're running in circles here, but I hope you have a solid day. There's a lot of cool things planned for this podcast and for the YouTube channel as well. And I appreciate your loyalty. My goal with this in general, just like when I first started, it was to help people understand marketing, help people understand business to a way they're not afraid to jump in it, because I definitely believe the real solid way out of the rat race of, working the 9 to 5, 60 hours a week for another company while they're getting rich off the hard earned sweat, tears, blood that you're putting in for the company is to start something for yourself. But you have to get over that fear to do that. And that's what I'm here to try to help you through, with mindset changes, with positive encouragement through positive psychology. I'm here to help get you through that. It's kind of horrible it took to this point to make sure that the platform works together, the equipment works together without, a computer being able to get in between me and what I'm trying to do. So, but I hope you have a solid day. Stay positive. We're going to have some nice material coming out this week, this month, and the rest of this year.